you lose them out of your system fairly rapidly. If they are more durable, they will actually allow you to take over the function of many materials that now are based on fossil materials. Because we need a lot more material basically to run our lifestyles currently. I'm not saying that's always going to be the case, but we use a lot more materials now than nature can actually provide us with on an annual basis. But if you allow nature to give us stuff that lasts longer than just one growth season, you can phase in those biologically based materials into your technical cycles. And then it actually becomes an answer to the problem. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Well, I want to make a little bit of a nuance to that, because one of the, so as you know, of course, food is also a biomaterial in a way that we're, of course, consuming. We need for daily sustain on Earth. And that is actually one of the key issues around using like really creating an economy fully based on bio-based materials. Because then you enter into a sphere of competition with arable lands that we need for food production. So that's something that is important to take into consideration when answering this question, that we actually cannot depend so much on our arable lands for the production of biomaterials. There's also a lot of nuance to this answer, but I just wanted to also explain that.
And I will give a totally different answer. At least I will try. It would be very good if you would be cooperative between the biologist and the industrial designer. Let them cooperate in their work on new solutions because they have different ways of looking at design issues, and you can really learn a lot from nature. You probably have heard of biomimicry, say imitating nature for solutions that nature already found thousands of years ago. So cooperate, work together, and you will get very new insights for your design problems.
那我们回答你的问题。好，那接下来还有没有问题？如果没有问题，我要先问。好，你先问好了。
I want to ask that, because we know that circular economy is a new concept for even the Netherlands citizens and Taiwanese, I think. So how did you persuade the governors, senators, and even what kind of obstacle when you are expanding this concept, and maybe some obstacles about to face the laws?
Well, the basic answer is that we didn't need to do anything for that, because politicians, but also entrepreneurs and scientists will understand that the circular way of thinking is a very natural one, a very economic sound one, and a social, very interesting way of looking. So it brings itself at speed. That's the difference with the discussions that I had for 30 years about sustainability or environment. And then I always have to say, yeah, but you should this and should do that. Now I just explain what it is. And entrepreneurs will think, hey, these are new business models. Politicians will think, hey, here is a new way of looking at my re-election. Yeah, that's also good for your re-election. But they see the solutions for societal and global issues around resources, etc. They see solutions coming. And people do understand that it's far more smart to be a user than an owner. Because ownership is so costful. bring so much cost to it. So you don't need to persuade someone to come into the circular economy. Everybody who has a little bit of an open mind and listens and reads about it and thinks about it will start working in the circular economy. And of course there are some regulations that should be different. For instance, when something is waste in the Netherlands, you only may use it as waste. You may not make new resources of it, because it's in the waste system, so it should be treated as waste. That's a stupid regulation now, but when it was made 30, 40 years ago, it was a health issue and an environmental issue, and then it was needed. But now, it's regulation for the circular economy a little bit stupid. So we have to change that. Regulations are man-made, so they can also be man-changed.
Well, maybe to answer it a little bit more, I think indeed it's the economy part of the circular economy that's really attractive now, that makes it attractive for businesses and governments. It is indeed, there are still a lot of barriers to really move towards the circular economy system. I think one of them is also that we still don't fully understand what we're really going towards. There's a lot of different concepts about what is a circular economy. But also, like, of course, there's regulations that hinder this development. But I would also say that there is fundamental flaws in the economic system. That, for example, externalities that we put on our environment that are not taken into account in the costing of a product, for example. So if we contribute to climate change, or if we pollute water, there's very little ways in which that is valued in the actual price of products, for example. So that means that there's still a lot of cases where, for example, responsible material management or trying to stay within these limits of the planetary system are actually not incentivized. They're rather disincentivized because it's still very free to do that. So that means that we're still very much, our institutions lock us very much in this linear economy. So we will need to look into what are these key barriers and how can we overcome them in a smart way. And Mark also gave, well, just as a final example, gave an indication of, for example, now, especially in Europe, labor is very heavily taxed. So it's very costly to actually take components apart, say from a car or something, take all the components apart because the labor is so expensive and resources are not taxed so heavily. So if we find a way to change that system so that we can actually, there's a lot more incentive to actually use labor to recycle. That's already would be a very clear pathway forwards to move towards a circular economy.
Yes, just some penultimate words before Shadow kicks us out here. Or someone else does actually. No, the boundaries, or sorry, the hindrance or the barriers, I think, are mainly in the mindset of people. I mean, human beings are intrinsically, stubborn to change. Once we've established something, we hang on to it. Once it's ours, it's ours. I mean, is there a difference between possession and exclusive right of use? Do you sense a difference? Practically there isn't, yet you might experience it as such. And it's those intrinsic human qualities that I think are the source material of the biggest hills that we need to climb. But because technically feasible, economically it's sound, and as soon as like 5% of the thinking population of a country gets it, change is inevitable. So you're not quite 5%, but you are the thinking population. So that's one thing. And I'd like to leave it at that, I think.
好，那接下来还有没有问题？是。
To promote circular economy in general, specifically, how is the circular city supported or financed?
So that requires a little bit of a nuanced answer as well, because it's not a, in essence, it's not like the circular city has become like, Amsterdam has fully become a circular city and that's fully financed already. So we're on our way to really try to identify how can we move towards a circular city, how would it look like? And there's a lot of different stakeholders at play here. So the city is of course not governed by just one person, right? So there's the government taking care of public affairs, then you have your infrastructure, utility companies taking care of, for example, water, wastewater, energy. And then you have housing developers, commercial, but also public. You have your residents. So there's so many different actors that play a role in how these cities would look in a circular state. So then when you think about how to finance all of that, that's not also one answer. There's also not one party paying for circularizing the city. So what we see in the cases that we're working on is that we need to find a way to align incentives with all these different stakeholders so that they're going to invest in smarter solutions together. Very often this involves making higher upfront investments. So more costs now, for example, better insulation of buildings or smarter infrastructure that actually pay back over a longer period of time. Whereas what we're used to is investing as cheap as possible and then putting all the costs, for example, on the owners of a house or the people living in a house. So that model needs to be changed and stakeholders need to work together in a completely different way. So I think that is maybe a little bit of the answer to your question. I don't know if anybody else has something to add to that.
Just a few, yeah, as always, I'll keep his mouth shut. Anyways, no, for instance, with our own developments that are not truly urban, but they are like commercial real estate, I mean, we simply invest equity. That's how it's paid for, because the business model is sound and it gives a higher return on investment. So there's no deal there. It's very simple. It's good business. Now, obviously, for a compact system such as a metropolitan area, it's very different because you don't have one ownership of all. That's what you basically explained. There's no single ownership of a city, and so it's, for instance, it's easier done for, say, Taoyuan International Airport than it would be for Taoyuan as a municipality. But if you start somewhere, you have a model that you can, which is at an achievable scale, and you can look at the finances there, and you can start extrapolating, grow, and develop. And I think that's sort of probably taking it one step at a time. I mean, was it Lao Tse who said that even 1,000 mile journey, you start with a single step? I think he is right. And you know, it's like that. It's a cumulative. Sorry, there I go, mispronouncing cumulative again. But it goes step by step. It's iterative. And so with the finance, the same. Start small, finance that, see that it works. Build on top of your success. Make it happen. Because, you know, once you show and lead by example, then the rest will follow.
And trust entrepreneurs, because the entrepreneurs will be the entrepreneurs. Mostly governments are not very entrepreneurial. They are working on regulation, planning systems, and so on. They need to cooperate in one way or another, but trust the entrepreneurial spirit of your civil servants, of your entrepreneurs, and even of the scientists, and then we will come further.
那接下来还有问题吗？
I think from the talk, you all support like more of a user-based system rather than an ownership-based system. I was just wondering, how far do you think this user-based system should go and should go to? Is there a threshold? Like, for example, you can rent a car, you can rent your jeans, but would you rent an underwear? Or you know what I mean? Like, how far should this system go that will make? Because from Dr. Olof, you have you like to own your own PowerPoint. So there's the so yeah. I was just wondering, is there a because people like to own stuff. So from that point of view, is there a threshold that you would suggest, or is there
Well, I would say there is not a real threshold, because people like to own, is what you say, but people like to use. Because when you have a washing machine or a dishwasher, whoever asked you whether it is your own, did they ever ask you for the contract that you signed to buy the washing machine? No. When you have a good washing machine, maybe you say proudly, I have a good washing machine, and you can use it. So ownership is a concept. That's one. Two, of course, it will be in development. I don't know whether someone will invent underpants that will be able to share and fit everybody and be clean in an instant, whatever. Why not? Why not? But probably it will be consumer goods with a reasonable pricing and materials use.
Eva really wants to say something.
No, yeah, I'm sorry, I do want to add something to this, because this is exactly one of the topics that has come up in the past. In fact, when I first heard about the mud jeans, I said, that's silly. And in fact, I said the exact same thing. Where do you stop? Do you want to rent underwear or socks? And actually, the thing that we've thought a lot about this in terms of what makes sense for sharing products or using them rather than owning them. And I think there are clear barriers that have to do with the complexity and lifespan of the product. If it's a highly complex product with a reasonable lifespan, then it becomes increasingly more sensible to use that product rather than own it. But if it's, and it also has to do with the fates of the materials. What can happen? You know, can it be disposed of easily? Does it need special treatment to be disposed of? If you can compost it in your backyard, why would you have it be leased instead of sent back to someone? So there's all these types of questions where you can really come up with a good technical scheme for doing this. And of course, that doesn't mean that, like Darian says, maybe one day someone will come up with really complex underwear that instantly cleans itself, and then you want to lease it, you know, great. But maybe, yeah, but I guess it has to do with these features of the product and the materials. That's all I wanted to say.
And it's entrepreneurial, because no one in the Netherlands or in the world ever thought that I would lease a jeans. It's a shame. He didn't succeed as an entrepreneur. He tried it, he started it, and some of us have leased jeans, but he did not get enough people to make a solid business case. So he changed the business case from towards selling the jeans and have the return logistic and return pay. And then you bring it back, you get something back paid. But this was an entrepreneur who tried, who started it, and everybody in the Netherlands knows now that mud jeans do exist. And it is a good jeans, and it is biological. So he has grown his own market. But the leasing, it was a step too far at this moment. So we need to learn.
One thing I want to add to this is more like a question for you, maybe as a take-home question to think about tonight over a beer, is more of the ethical consequences what will happen when, because you will not become the owner anymore of that product, right? So that means that somebody else, namely probably the producer of that product, will be the owner of all the resources within that. Well, imagine a world where all of that is, of course, a lot of our resources and products are already dominated by a vast group of companies and industries. But who is actually, to whom do these resources on planet Earth belong? And how do we create a fair share and an equitable share of these resources in such a way that everybody would, in theory, have a fair share of access to these resources without them being all concentrated in one company, for example, that can endlessly make a lot of money by giving you a service of using that resource in whatever form. So that, I think, is an important question that we will need to find an answer to somewhere along this track of moving towards a circular economy.
That's really the scarcity versus abundance model of doing business. And again, you know, when we talk, is there a threshold value when something, I mean, is a house yours if you have a mortgage? No, it's a good question. The bank didn't even have the money to put out for the mortgage. They simply have basically invested in securities that you will pay it over the course of the next 20 or 30 years. So, you know, if ownership is sort of fragile at least, you know, if exclusive right of use means that you're the only person wearing those jeans during the time you wish to own them, which is you wish to lease them, it's the same thing. You know, nobody's going to take your jeans away because you don't own them, because they're yours. You're the only person using them, wearing them, etc. So, you know, again, it's psychology more than anything else. If you're practical about it, all of a sudden, having access to stuff on an equal basis for most, it's just a basically good idea.
那还有没有问题？我想我们是最后几个问题了。好，那我来问一个问题好了。对，那今天在座的大部分都是在学生嘛，那所以刚才 Eva 有问大家说毕业以后要干嘛？所以你们打算要找工作吗？对，所以今天我想要问的就是说，其实循环经济不止在荷兰，那在欧洲都被认为是一个，就是欧盟在去年它签了一个誓言，就是说整个欧洲要往循环经济迈进。为什么？因为循环经济讲的不只是环保而已。那刚才他们已经提到了很多新的点子，所以对这个创业跟就业都有很大的关系。那所以我想请教讲者的就是循环经济对创业跟就业的关系，还有各位同学将来如果在迈入职场，甚至是自己要创业的话，现在可以开始做哪些准备，或者是思考哪一些问题，这样子。
Well, the answer is a bit biased. Because if you look at the continuation of our linear model, we're looking at a for certain system collapse within your lifetime. And I don't think anyone wants that. I mean, for my generation, I don't want to postpone solving the issues so you get to deal with them. That would be very unkind of me and very, you know, there's solidarity between the generations. And if we would simply not do it, we'd leave it up to you and you'd have, you know, 20 more years to get into the grip of things. So one of the reasons why I'm very happy to be here is because, you know, if you interact with people that are like 20 years your junior or 27 years your junior, at least, you know, you get the fresh ideas, and our generation is a lot more open to suggestions from the younger people than maybe my older generation was when I was 27 or 25 or whatever. So when it comes to building a career, trying to figure out what you'll do that does not involve the circular economy, maybe 30, 40 or 50 years from now when you finally get your old age pension, I find it hard to imagine that those types of jobs would be available. So, you know, if you want to address the issue, you know, you start after you graduate, either you go further on in science or you progress in business, or maybe you don't do anything at all, it's your personal choice. But to not try and help the world evolve towards a more sound economic system is basically allowing the system to collapse on itself. So I'm not sure how much degrees of freedom there are.
But again, the other answer is don't take anything for granted. Everything that we use, own, think that is reality has been developed in the last 100, 200 years. And of course we have a longer history, but most of it is about 2 centuries old. So don't take anything for granted. Ask different questions. Be curious. Listen to people and think twice what they are saying. Because when people are talking, I'm talking now, but the question is, what do you hear? So listen to people, but hear what you are hearing yourself, and follow your heart. and dare to ask the new questions, and don't take anything for granted, whether it's economic, social, ecological, or scientifically. Don't take anything for granted, and be entrepreneurial.
I heard someone say beer.
Beer. Heineken. No.
Taiwan classic.
Taiwan classic.
好，那还有没有大家有问题？我们开放最后一个吗？一个问题。我知道你很想回答，没有很想问。好，那没有哈 ，OK， 好，那我们就非常谢谢这几位专家，来到我们的循环经济的座谈的会场。那在我们让次再掌声鼓励，感谢大家，他们。
谢谢张主持人及讲者的分享。但是我们在这边再次邀请我们的主持人跟讲者在台上稍微帮我们留步，因为紧接着要进行的是我们的合照。